What's up, Buttercups? Thank you for joining me again today with episode 7, I do believe, of Interview with a Fox. Today, as you can see on the screen, but I just want to just repeat, Jim is here. He's here. And we're going to just jump right into, he hasn't been on the channel yet, so as with every new interviewee, we're gonna go with that. I just ask the guest where he or she first saw me and like vice versa. And I think this one's gonna be interesting because I've seen Jim around a lot, but I don't know what algorithm helped him see me. I have no idea. So do you know where you first saw me slash how we met?
Nope. So here's the thing. I think it was either Goodreads because I do remember seeing you on Good. I've seen your Goodreads profile, and we have interacted on Facebook. I've also watched some of your YouTube videos. I don't know which came first. I really don't, but here we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, I don't remember either, but I think I saw you speaking on John A. Douglas's Coffee Live. And that,
hmm
like, do I recall what was said? No, because I'm on West Coast time. And like I sometimes I try to cut it back, but I sometimes will
hmm
just bring up my phone when I'm still on uh half asleep or like 70% sleep mode. I just go
Yeah.
and I'm like, ooh, what's going on? And then I saw it and I clicked it and I'm like, oh, this is really early. I'm gonna just listen to this just briefly as I lay in bed and just try to awake and function in the
hmm
world. But yeah, that's really early. Well, it's early for West Coast time. It's probably normal time for you all. So I try and pop in, or have tried to pop in, but I don't. I think I did maybe like max 20 minutes. But I
hmm
think the first one, the live, was talking about those special editions. And I think you have swag. I think it was swag slash special editions, how to get readers interested in indie, because Jim, if anyone didn't know, Jim is an
hmm
indie writer. So
Yeah.
I think I remember. Do you have the like a copy of your book probably in the background?
I
Okay.
do. So, oh, here it is. So this is my book.
Ooh,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's called The Seventh Cadence.
Hmm.
It's the first book in the Continual Chronicles. And yeah, it's this was the first book I released under my own name. I've done a little
Hmm.
ghostwriting in the past, but nothing that I can really talk about. But
Hmm.
so yeah, it's I'm very proud of it, and I had a lot of fun releasing it because I released it with a little bit of swag. Um,
Yeah.
like it came in this box, like this custom
Ooh,
box.
yes.
Yeah, and I think I still have the stuff in it. Yeah. So this came in this box, and I had a
Mm.
a, a note, um, a custom T-shirt and
Woo!
whatnot. Um,
That's nice.
and a few other things, a bookmark, some stickers and whatnot. So yeah. Um, it's a lot of fun. Not the most cost
Hmm.
efficient way for an indie
Yeah.
author to release a book, but I wanted to do it, and no one could stop me. So
Oh yeah. Well, I'm sure it was, well, as you said, fun, but then also because it's a first in the series, people are going to most likely remember it. And then they're
hmm
like, oh, wait. I mean, even if you don't do it for all the other books,
hmm
because of the cost effectiveness, they're still going to have all of that stuff and they'll be reminded at the very
hmm
least. So it's kind of like a long term idea. Usually, how
yeah.
that goes for indie, very long term. Like I'm I have finally broken even on my 4 chat books.
Oh, that's
Still
fantastic.
yeah, still waiting on the standalones, and the urban fantasy mystery books. But yeah, for the urban fantasy mystery book covers specifically, I had to bite the bullet because I did the math. And if I got them, it's 6 covers, 6 books, and if I did it individually or even like 3 at a time, kind of break it up, I would have, because urban fantasy covers are like so much manipulation with
Mhm.
models and stuff, like $3,000. I'm like,
Oh,
oh, I'm
wow.
so sorry. Okay, oh my God. That's a few rent.
Yeah. Mhm.
So then I was like, okay, so talking to my cover artist, Faye Lane, I was like, okay, so what if I bundled it? Can we do
Yeah.
payment plans? Like that would be great. And so
Mhm.
it was like 1,200, and that kicked my butt. Yeah,
Mhm.
last year for taxes. Did not get anywhere at
Mhm.
all of profit overall, but at least I am set for years. So
That's great.
you have,
Yeah.
yeah, you have to look as an indie writer really far out, or else it kind of makes you sad. But even then, it
Mhm.
might even make you sad because you look at
Yeah, it
the PayPal and
exactly.
you're like, help me.
Yeah, I'm not sure my wife has completely forgiven me for what I've done. So, but, she's great. She follows me into the dark in ways she probably should not. So, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, this, my cover, cost a pretty penny to make. And
Mhm.
that's the thing about fantasy is like one of the most expensive genres to write in. The books
Yeah.
tend to be longer. It's not always, but they tend to be longer, which means they cost more to edit, they take longer to write, and
Mhm.
you know, uh, the covers tend to cost a lot more than what you can get away with other covers. And since they are longer, not only are they more expensive to edit, but you make a smaller margin of profit on the actual sales, especially in
Mhm.
physical. So it's it's almost death by a thousand cuts. The
Yeah.
longer your book is, especially. So.
Yeah, I got lucky. Maybe not got. I mean, I am lucky with the urban fantasy mystery because it's mystery and you can only do so much, where until
Hmm.
then you're like you yourself, and then also the readers will be like, why is this book so long? Where's, like, you need to wrap it up. I'm
Right.
bored. And then,
Hmm. Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
but that is kind of an outlier. If you do like a mix of subgenres, fantasy and mystery, you got to get it short, or else
Right. Right.
people are not going to
There's
be
certain.
excited. But
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
than that, it's
Yeah.
going to be
I
long-ish.
it's important to kind of conform a little bit to the reader expectation if you're going to say your urban fantasy mystery, that comes with a little bit of baggage, so you're not
Hmm.
expecting a 1,000-page book. I mean, that would be completely outside your expectations, and then they'd be
Yeah.
like, I don't know, and then they start doubting you, and that seed of doubt, it's a cascade, so yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I grew up reading, well, it was like middle grade epic fantasy. So it's like, it is epic, but it's shorter. It's not going to be like a
Hmm.
1,000 pages. But um, I think the biggest, the thickest, and I'm pretty sure it's young adult fantasy. I don't think it's middle grade, but the Aragon books started
Hmm.
in 8th grade. So technically, was I 13? Whatever, it doesn't. But I read all that I could with the middle grade uh, epic fantasy, and then we get into the. It's called the inheritance cycle. I should know.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah,
it's the
yeah.
inheritance cycle.
Right, yeah.
Oopsie, sorry,
Christopher
Christopher, I
Paolini, I
forgot.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, but those were, they are thick. And then
Mhm.
I got the technically 5th book, so I guess it's not a cycle anymore. But the Murta one, and I'm looking at it in my mind, and then because I got it used, because yeah, 38.99 or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about that. It was hardcover,
Yeah.
but then I think it was
Mm-hmm.
like 25.99 used. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna get it anything less than that.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes in, and it's a weapon. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
tell you, it is so big, and the hardcover really like seals the deal with you thump on it, and it kind of echoes a little bit.
Yeah.
But but then I'm looking at like, wow, I was great for eighth grader.
Mm-hmm.
These because it's about the same length, and I don't know. I I think another. It's not epic fantasy though. It's like a weird mishmash. The Outlander series by Diana Gabaldon. The books
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe helps when the first and second book are a little shorter, like shorter 500 pages, right? And then
Right.
it just keeps going because you kind of don't notice that it keeps going, getting bigger
Mm-hmm.
and bigger. And like the last book, I think it was like more than 900 pages, and I got it, and I'm like, what happened? We started at 500-ish, and now we're over 900. Okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
let's
It's
sit
that page
down.
creep.
It is.
Yeah.
I think the other one that I did not read was Harry Potter. I think you can tell, like you're kind of
Mm-hmm.
like aging up or whatever. But I read the first book with my grandmother, and we were like, doesn't work. We
Mm-hmm.
just put that down, and I didn't go anywhere with that. But I think the Aragon epic fantasy vibe is that
Yeah.
it kind of starts around the same page length or thickness, and it doesn't really get much because you can't. I don't know. Well, I think Brandon Sanderson has like a 1,200 page book,
Yeah, I
which is
think
like,
so.
oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Can you do like you're already at 900? You're starting at 900 the first book. We're going 50 pages extra every time. I don't know about that. So I think that gets to me a little bit nowadays in
Yeah.
my 30s. I don't know. Maybe my existential crisis is like I have so many books, and let's get to the shorter ones.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
I have found myself in that place too, like where I'm like looking for shorter books sometimes, even just to break up the longer books. So I
Hmm.
feel like there's space in my life for both now, and that's actually kind of nice. I've been the past few years I've been reading a lot of novellas and a lot of short
Yeah.
novels in the fantasy sphere space. Some of them have been, more comedic. Some of them have been
Hmm.
closer on the urban fantasy side. So that I've really enjoyed, and it's nice to have something a little different in between the longer epics. Because I read a lot of longer books when I was younger. So um, yeah.
Yeah. Do you know which series started it, or is it kind of like a blur? I only remember because I have the original copies. I've just like hoarded them. I'm like, don't touch any book, don't touch, and they
So which
blasted. But
so which one started the longer book craze, or which one started reading in general? Like,
reading in general.
okay. So I would say probably the Goosebumps series
Oh yeah.
from R.L.
Hmm.
Stein. Um, I tell this story quite often, so I mean, if there's anybody here watching that's seen me in the interview before, I'm so sorry to tell this story again. But like, I tricked myself into reading, where
Hmm.
um, in summer camp, I went to a summer camp one year. There was only one year I went to a summer camp at the YMCA, and one of the kids there became one of my friends, and he was reading the Goosebumps series, and I thought he was cool. So I was like, "Well, he's cool, and if he's reading Goosebumps, maybe I should be reading Goosebumps." Complete follower
Yeah.
mindset. Yeah, and then I just start reading them, and he was reading them super fast, and I'm like, "He's reading them so fast, like." I can read that fast. And then I started reading them fast. And I just slowly tricked myself into reading a lot. So that's how that happened. So um good times. I'm glad that that it happened that way. So anytime
Yeah.
somebody says, "Well, how do I get my kids into reading?" I'm like, "I don't know. Find some other kid who loves reading and then, let them hang out."
Yeah.
So
Oh, yes. Yeah, there's a few tricks. Because I helped run a tutoring center when I was living in Virginia, and the tutoring centers, you had some that were like the kids that were advanced, some not like too many, but like their parents couldn't afford private school, or some of them
Mhm.
did, and they were like so advanced, like a third grader reading at a 10th grade level. You got to give them something else, like, or else
Right.
they're going
Mhm.
to act up. That happened a few times. But the ones that were behind, I would just sit with them and ask, "What's your favorite movie?" And you kind of
Mhm.
just go from there.
Right.
And if they, I mean, yeah, I think because there's so much screen time. It's either movie or TV or maybe like even a YouTube channel that maybe in the
Mhm.
past that wouldn't have worked, but now it totally does.
Yeah.
You're just gonna go with it.
Mhm.
And I got a lot of kids into reading, but I started them more like a little bit or many grade levels below.
Mhm.
Um, in which like the owner of the center was like, "You shouldn't do that." I'm like, "Okay, well, we're going to do it anyway."
Mhm.
And this is how you get people to get into the higher levels. You got to start them a little simpler. And then
Mhm.
when the kids understand, like, "Oh, okay, I can read this." And like just like
Mhm.
it's a jumping point all the way up to enjoying it. Now, I think there
Yeah.
is at a point where people in general aren't going to necessarily be interested in reading. And if that's the case, and I don't think pushing people to read will help in any way. I mean, I wish everyone was into reading, but the
Mhm.
people's tastes are going to be different. And I think
Yeah.
it not really expect. I don't know. My time in school was weird. Um, but it was expected that all the kids should love reading and do it as a
Mm.
hobby. And I don't know if that's the best way to go about it for a lot of kids that are just not
Mhm.
interested in reading. Maybe they're into sports or maybe they're into biology. They do need the reading comprehension,
Right. Yeah.
but are they going to be reading 100 books for fun in a year? Probably not, because they're doing
Yeah.
biology stuff or they're playing football or something like that. Like
Mhm.
it takes up um, their love for something else takes up the room to read a bunch of books. But getting the kids into reading that have that budding interest, I think, is where you kind
Mhm.
of get into it just a little bit. And some of them are
Yeah.
under reading level, and you just gotta bring them up slowly.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think that's one of the things is that the reading comprehension is very important. But I think a lot of people don't realize that not everybody's going to be a reader. And as much as you want your
yeah,
kid to be a reader, because even if you're not a reader, you want your kid to be a reader because that's like a societal thing that, make your kids read or whatever. Not that you shouldn't have your kids read, but it's one of those things where not everyone's going to be a reader. There's a reading comprehension thing that needs to be accomplished in order to, for them to have an easier time in life and be
hmm
successful. But some kids are just not going to be a huge reader. I have a son, he's 11. He's not a huge reader. He reads, a couple books a year. Aside from, stuff I put in his hands, I'm like, oh, you should read this and we'll talk about it. And he'll do it. But it's not a big interest of his. He loves drawing, and he will spend a
hmm
ton of time doing that and creating, he likes Pokemon a lot right now.
Mm.
He's loved Pokemon ever since he was very, very little because I introduced it to him very young, and he just draws and makes up new Pokemon and makes up new Pokemon regions and draws maps and tries to create all the gym like game setting up kind of levels uh of creativity, and I love that for him. It's not something I'm specifically interested in doing myself, but everyone has their forte. So
Yeah, and I don't know how uh, that would work in how you could bring that out more so in schools. There, like in Britain, there's you hit a certain grade level. They don't say grade level, but let's go with that. And then you have to choose pretty young where you're going. And
right.
I guess that I don't know enough people in Britain to say if that's good or bad. Hypothetically, it seems to work, but
Hmm.
then what if someone or someone's thought that they would be interested in English literature and language, but then they took like an elective of like a required elective of some science class, and then like now they're obsessed, but then they can't change. I think that's where it gets a little weird. But then again, maybe
Hmm.
they changed it from the last time I had the conversation because that was a few years ago with someone
Hmm.
else. But he went towards like tech, and he went to college for tech, and he works for a big ish tech company, and that worked for him. I don't know. I think maybe more technical schools for like bringing them back because we had them, but they were taken away. Bring back technical schools like for 11th and 12th graders, maybe even 10th graders, because I don't
Hmm.
think everyone's going to be into going to college.
Hmm.
And if you want to be a hairdresser, that takes a lot. As
Yeah.
I ran salons, it takes a lot. You got to
Yeah.
learn a
Yeah.
lot of stuff, or else you mess up someone's hair and they're gonna punch you in the face.
Yeah. People are very sensitive about their hair. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I kind of do have a perspective that there's a certain level of dignity in all work.
Hmm.
So it's not really important to me, or I mean, I don't really judge people on, what they do in life as long as they're happy and, you know,
Yeah.
they are successful in it. And success is kind of a personal metric. But to me,
Hmm.
success is like, are you fulfilling yourself? Are you able to sustain yourself doing that? Like, I'm not asking you to be rich, but are you okay? Is it
Yeah.
hurting you in some way? So um, yeah. So it's interesting. I would love a less honestly, I would like a lesser emphasis on college and more emphasis on, creating sustainable lifestyles through, technical
Yeah.
schools or trade schools or whatever. So,
Yeah, because I have heard a lot of students and then their parents, or also just like uh, people around my age not knowing what they want to do, or like they're pushed in some certain direction. And like there was a college friend who was pushed into was it was some STEM thing, but like she was failing every single class. She's
mhm,
just not. She was doing her absolute best. She even had tutors. It just did not work, but that was expected of her from her parents because they were STEM
yeah,
people.
mhm,
And then I was like, I know you might have a fight with your parents or multiple
mhm,
fights with your parents, but maybe something in the liberal arts. I mean, you don't have to do English. Like I have a BA in English language and literature.
mhm,
Maybe go down that road of because they had in the college I went to, there was a 5-year program to become a teacher. I was like, oh,
mhm,
maybe that will help them a little bit because
yeah, yeah,
look, it was tough out there for quite some time with my English degree. And I knew that from the
Yeah.
start.
Mhm.
It took a bit. It took a bit. And I was doing like, silly salon managing slash receptionist jobs.
Mhm.
Did not really
You
have that
know
most relation to the English degree until it went to tutoring, and then I'm like, well, this makes sense. Okay,
right.
we're here now. Took a while, so I was like, just let you know, friend, maybe do something else within that kind of sphere. But I think
Yeah.
even like psychology was in that sphere. I don't know necessarily why. I but it was a really big STEM school, so they probably like STEM everything else.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it worked out for her. I don't remember what she did, and I know she had some fights about that. But I
Mhm.
mean, you have to think about it. I think like if you're failing everything, you're paying for a tutor. I think her parents were paying out of pocket. It's just like if something does not work, you got to pivot. It's like that
Yeah.
is time and money and energy down the drain. 2 years. She was like on probation. I felt so bad for her. But yeah, when you're like pushed into doing something that you're not, yeah, not even not interested, but not good at,
Yeah.
a little existential crisis happening, I'm sure.
Mhm.
At least my
Yeah.
mom was like, yeah, do what you want to do because I know you can't do math. We've established this. You're kind of limited in what you can do there, Nicole.
Lean into your strengths, go for it.
Yeah. Did
Yeah.
you go to college?
Mhm. So I went to college for music, actually. Um,
Oh.
so I was also a liberal arts major. I went for music business and management, which sounds less liberal artsy, but it was at a liberal arts school because all you could do was
Mhm.
music there. So they had
Uh-oh.
a specific career path for that. Um, I chose to do the business and management side because I felt like I needed to know something about that side. What I really wanted to do was the audio engineering side, but
Mhm.
they were way more selective in that program, and it was easier to get into business and management. And then I just learned it anyway because I just
Yeah.
wanted to learn audio engineering. I was like, I'm going to learn this anyway, so I just learned it by myself. So yeah, so that's what I did, and then I'm not doing that anymore. Not exactly. I still do a lot of audio engineering. It's just
Mhm.
not for music anymore. I do personal for myself. I make music personally. Now I used
Mhm.
to be a musician and whatnot for about 10 years. And then now I mostly, edit podcasts and YouTube videos for people um, on
Oh.
the side. So yeah.
Oh yeah, you
Yep.
can make a lot doing that because oh my gosh,
Hmm.
some people just don't want to edit. I like
Yeah.
I have to do it on my old Mac, which like the last time I was trying to edit a video, it was just the lag was unreal. Um, but uh, yeah, because I don't know, some people can tell, others can't, but I have multiple speech impediments, so it takes me longer. And I'm sure there are people that don't have speech impediment or multiple like I do, but it still takes long for whatever reason. And I can see where people will budget in an editor because
Hmm.
it takes so long. But I just happen to have time. And I have
Yeah.
cut
Yeah.
down my videos to like not be so much time editing.
Hmm.
Like I also you just kind of get better at speaking. I think
Hmm.
I compared to like I started speech therapy when I was 3, and whenever someone spoke to me, I would cry and run away. And here I am
Hmm.
now. We've got lots of improvement. Okay, it's a
Yes,
great jump. Yay me.
exactly.
But so I think, but then in the beginning, I've been doing YouTube for like 6 years on and off.
Mhm.
But I remember in the beginning, it took like 5 hours for one video.
Yeah,
It was
I hear
so
that.
bad. But now it's like an hour. Uh, I'm also very picky.
Yeah.
So I could be less picky and
Mhm.
save more time. But the perfectionist brain.
Mhm.
Sometimes you gotta choose your battles, and I'm like, okay, well, an hour of editing and uploading, that's okay. I just don't
Yeah.
put those videos out all the time. Now the people that want to do YouTube in general for like a career, it's like every other day yeah, I could not.
Career YouTubers are insane people. Uh,
Yeah.
not not that not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just that the amount of work you have to put in for that
Mm.
is it's a lot. And I don't think people really realize often how much work YouTube can take.
Oh
Even
yeah.
for simple videos,
Hmm.
it can take an extraordinary amount of work and effort with very little reward. I mean, no reward guaranteed, but very little reward in general because there's a lot of things to watch on YouTube. So if you're
Yeah.
just not quite hitting the algorithm, not quite exactly what is most popular right now, then you have an uphill climb to find your
Hmm.
audience, to find people who are interested in what you're making, and it doesn't really even matter how good it is. Like
Yeah.
it could be professional quality stuff, but it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, you got to find your audience, or maybe your audience just isn't very large, no matter how good it is, and it's just you're not going to have a good time if you're trying to be a full time. So you kind of have to go in it with a little bit of faith and a little bit of, you know, I want to do this, so I'm just doing it. So if it doesn't work
Hmm.
out, same thing with writing in general too. Like there's no guarantees in writing. You kind of have to, just put effort into it and do it because you want to do it more so than because you have to do it to survive. So, um, and if you
Yeah.
are doing it to survive, Godspeed because it's rough out there.
Yeah, there was this one person, I'm gonna be like very vague. I don't think he knows that I exist, but he but you know what? Vague. The It was in a particular writing group, and um I don't even remember the post, but he commented and said, every time I sit down at the computer now, I dread writing, but I have to because at this point I can't not write, but I hate the genre that I'm writing in. But
Hmm.
my family depends on me. And this person was making a lot of money. But that doesn't
Hmm.
mean that that helps.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it helps a little bit, but like he said, he holds back tears every time he has to sit down and write because he hates the genre
Yeah.
that he has chosen
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah.
Like,
Some
and then
people
what do
in
you
the writing community,
do? Yeah, yeah.
they
I
call
don't
they
know what
call
you do
that
with that.
yeah, there's two things I've heard for that. One is like that, obviously the hamster wheel, Um,
Mm,
you got to keep writing to keep selling. But also, I've heard a lot of writers call that the golden handcuffs because like
yeah,
it's like the thing that you wanted, but then you get it and you're like, oh, I'm locked in now. Like I can't, like I'm stuck
yeah.
doing it. So it's tricky. It's very tricky to deal with. Um, and I think especially for a lot of newer and indie writers, because a lot of us aren't as experienced with the industry at large with traditional publishing. Um, so we don't get a lot of the conventional wisdom. Is that
Hmm.
fail happens in careers all the times. Sometimes you have to pivot, and writing is just one of those crafts and one of those career paths where it's kind of like there's no guarantees. You might have to take a break. You might you know have to stop. And even in traditional publishing world, most of them aren't writing full time. because it just can't
Yeah.
be the thing they do to support themselves. And if you make it to that level where it's what you do to support yourself, I mean, sometimes it's worse than if you're just doing it for a hobby, because you
Yeah.
you don't want to do it anymore. You can't stop, and that can be a problem.
Yeah. And I know someone who recently quit writing. She was just losing too much money and it was affecting her like actual bills.
Hmm.
She has like a few kids and all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, that's tough. But
Yeah.
I had a conversation with my husband, actually a few of them. I was like, yeah, so 2023, I lost some money. Some money. I
Yeah.
lost a lot of money. But it was that bulk buy for 6 covers. So
Yeah.
that's very abnormal. And like, I'm not doing that
Hmm.
again, babe. I'm sorry. But
Yeah.
he was like, well, like you budgeted it and we didn't miss any bills. Like it wasn't really felt.
Hmm.
Um, so it was like, yeah, I mean, if it's not felt, then it's totally fine. And he was saying, even though you are exhausted every time you come out of your office, but you're really happy because you just wrote 2,000 words and
Hmm.
it's a light in your eyes, even though like you're gonna pass out in like 5 minutes because you didn't really hydrate, which I need to remember to hydrate when I'm writing like that. Like
Yeah.
it's something there that you can't not do. And I realized probably like a few months ago, seeing that comment and then seeing other people's comments that are indie, and they're all specifically indie, where they're
Hmm.
just churning out books in like specific genres. Not all genres can do this, but like especially like romance, churning out books every month.
Hmm.
And yeah, they're making 7 figures, but they don't get a break.
Yeah.
And I'm just
Yeah.
like, if that's what's needed, I'm not doing that. I can't.
Hmm.
I can't.
Yeah. Yeah. I've
Um,
specifically built my career around the fact that to I don't want to have to produce, on a timeline that I'm uncomfortable with. And I don't care what that means for whether or not I can become full-time author or not. So I've basically decided my goal is not to become a full-time author. And it's just, and that gives that, if you reframe for that, like,
mhm.
if you are trying to become an author and you frame it for, my goal is not, maybe not even your goal. Maybe your metric for success is not, I'm a full-time author. If you can get over that, and because there's a lot of societal pressure of like, oh, you're a writer. Oh, they don't make a lot of money. So like there's a lot of societal pressure to make it like, oh no, I am a writer. And that's the only thing that can validate
Mhm.
you, is that, check in the mail that says I'm a
Yeah.
writer and that's everything I do. That doesn't have to be your entire life. That can just be part of your life, and a precious part of your life that you protect from finances. Obviously,
Yeah.
you can't completely protect it because there are certain things you have to budget for and put into it and earn out on. But you know, um, if I break even on my books, I'm happy, because
Yeah.
once I break even, then it's all profit, and my books don't go
Mhm.
away until I die, because then after I die, I don't really care what happens. So, whatever. So, it's just, you know, sustainability in whatever you do is, it's so very important. And you got to be careful, you know, not to put yourself in a pair of golden handcuffs, because that can be just as bad as the whatever day job that you hate, and
Mhm.
you don't want to turn what you love into what you hate, because that is awful. um
Yeah.
that didn't quite happen to me with music, but it got close at one point,
Mm.
because I pushed for it so hard, and there were things that I didn't quite understand. I didn't know. Like in retrospect, I understand where things went wrong and why. Um, some of it was my fault, some of it wasn't. Some of it was just I tried things that the market wasn't ready for, and I see people doing it now. I'm like, oh, come on. It's like I could have done that when it comes to like marketing wise of like because I was at the time I was very much pushing like I know digital is going to be a thing, and I would push for it a few years before people were ready. And I was like,
Mhm.
it's you're not gonna want a CD. Like, it's fine, don't worry about it. And like it was like people weren't quite ready at the time when I was pushing for that. That was a miscalculation on my part. So that was my fault. I wasn't wrong. I was just early. Um,
Yeah.
so um, it you, but as soon as I kind of gave up on trying to become a career musician, I was a side hustle musician. But as soon as I gave up like pushing for that, music became fun again. So,
Mhm.
because I didn't have to do it for
Yeah.
anybody except for me. And I wrote way more music after I stopped being a full, like a part-time musician than I wrote
Mhm.
before that. I don't know. There was something about the stress of trying to become something um, that
Right.
hurt the creative process, I think. Um, so, yeah, it's interesting how that works sometimes.
Yeah. I'm seeing it more and more as I get into like indie writer spaces.
Hmm.
And I think it's interesting. I don't know. The trad authors that I know still do not have a book out. They're like still really struggling. So I don't know.
Hmm.
I can't like, ask one or even two people about how it works for traditionally published authors. Though I know like most of them are not full time anyway. They have
Hmm.
another job that like pays the bills, or like
Right.
at least the majority of the bills. But yeah, for indie authors, it seems like there's like a huge push of just wearing yourself out.
Hmm.
And for what again? Like,
Hmm.
do you need
Yeah.
to do a book a month? Do you really need to do that? Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
do, because then if I don't, then like I'll drop down to $4,000 instead of 10,000 a month. I'm like, 4,000 is great. I don't.
Yeah.
I would love 4,000 a month. I don't make
Yeah.
that. Okay, but it could. It. I think for some people, not just writers, where you hit a certain point of money and you're like, do it more, 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 more,
Mm,
more, until
yeah.
then you don't realize, or maybe you kind of realize, but like you don't want to admit it, but you're burning yourself out, and then
Yeah.
you're crying at your
Mhm.
keyboard because you don't want to write this genre anymore, or
Mhm.
you don't want to go to work for an IT company because it used to be fun and now they just work you to death. And what's the point? I think getting back into what's the point of
Mhm.
writing for you, and that's why I kind of do author tube. Like maybe 10% of my videos are author tube, but I always say like, what are your goals? I can't tell you. I can't,
Mhm.
sometimes I can't even tell myself. I'm,
Yeah.
s- we're all figuring it out. Um,
Mhm.
but I think because I was having an existential crisis about this in December, and my husband
Mhm.
was like, okay, well, are you still going to write and publish books even if you lose some money? Or can you walk away? I said, I damn well can't walk away. So he's like, well, okay, then that means you're writing because you want to and have to. Like it's in
Mhm.
you. Just like some people just want and need to play a specific sport because that's just in them.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think I would probably, for someone that's struggling, I would probably pose that question to them, because you could make money somewhere else that's a little easier. Like,
Oh,
you do
a
have to
little
work
easier.
so yeah, literally, you have to work so freaking much to get to, like, a certain point, and then do you really want it? Because you're putting out a book a month. Like, do you really
Yeah.
wanna go this way? Or you go
Mhm.
somewhere easier?
Yeah,
But I think,
I don't think there's ever
ugh,
been yeah, I don't think there's ever been any other job or thing that I've done in my life that I haven't made easier money with. Like, writing is the hardest way I've ever tried to make any money, by far. Like, b I can in one day, I could probably make more money than I can in a month, um, being an author. Like, easy, depending on what I choose, but easy,
mhm,
so it's just not the career to choose if you're doing it just to make money. It has to be something that you really
yeah.
deeply are satisfied with, or you get something out of it yourself, because the monetary reward is too little unless you just happen to break out, and even that isn't guaranteed to last. So
Yeah, you kinda see this in Hollywood and the music industry where, like, you look back, um, like, let's go with, like, one-hit wonders. They're
mhm,
like, "Bad Day" by
mhm.
Daniel Powder sorry, Daniel, I don't remember. I know your song, but, like, that's kind of the thing where, like, well, at least you had something. I'm sure he gets licensing deals and all that stuff, but people don't remember all that much else.
Mhm.
And he can't or could not find something else to push it. So, like, you have maybe it was like a year or two where it was a huge thing, and then it's replaced by something else, and that's replaced by something else, and
Mhm.
that can really hurt your psyche as well. I've seen, like, really popular traditionally published and indie authors where they shoot up, and, like, that's all anyone's talking about, and then you don't their books following just don't sh- shoot up in the popularity anywhere.
Yeah.
And that's also something you kind of have to contend with art in general, because you can make one or two pieces or maybe more. Like, you're lucky if you, like, make a few more than, like, one or two that
Mhm.
becomes really really popular, and then you just kind of trickle down into what it was before, but you had that high. And
Yeah.
I don't know if the brain can understand that just jump in popularity and then you're down again. I
Right.
don't
I
think that
think
is
the
a normal thing.
yeah, I think the person I can't remember her name, but everyone knows this book even if they haven't read it, but The Purpose Driven Life.
Mm,
It's like one of the best selling books of all time. And the author, I think she was like doing an interview or something. I can't remember how I ran across it, but she was trying to figure out like what to do with her life after that, because she realized she was
yeah,
like, this there's nothing that I can ever do now that will do any better than that, because it was so
yeah,
successful that like she was like, well, what do I go from here? And that was like very
mm,
hard for her, which is super ironic that book is called The Purpose Driven Life.
yeah,
Not to make fun of anybody, but it's a little ironic.
yeah,
So it's just one of those things where, I mean, sometimes when it is a weird thing to like hit your peak at a certain point and realize you have a lot of life left, and you're like, oh,
mhm,
what do I do now? So that can be
yeah,
tough.
yeah. That's why I'm like, let's just go steady.
Hmm.
Because let's just steadily build, because I would probably have continual panic attacks if one of my books went really, really popular and then goodbye. No one is going to read the other stuff because, like, that's the best and you can't do anything else better than that. So we give up.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh. Thinking about that makes
See,
me anxious. I can't do it. Let's go steady. I like this
so
steady life.
I would enjoy a breakout hit, but only after I've written a lot of stuff. And the reason why is
Oh, yeah.
because then you kind of get that, halo effect where it's like, oh,
Mhm.
well, I like this. Maybe I'll try another one of their books. But like, knocking it out of the park on the first book, that is terrifying to me. And I'm so glad, I didn't become, I don't know, Stephen King or Brandon Sanderson on the first book, because that's terrifying to me. Like, extreme success out of the gate, because it's like, well, what did I do? I don't even know what I did right. I can't replicate that. So
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I think my editor, I was also this was a while ago, not recently, but she had a group that for all the indie writers that she writes for or
hmm
edits for. And she was like, yeah, I have some full-time authors, and they freak out every single time they send over that draft because it's
hmm
make it or break it. And she's like, I just want everyone to just think of like, would it being a full-time author solve your problems or really fulfill you? Because these full-time authors freak out all the
hmm
time and
right.
they are always stressed.
Yeah.
And is that what you want from your art?
hmm
And then like if you're like churning out books, when does it become not fun and also not art? Because you started
hmm
as wanting to produce a piece of art that then becomes into a product, yeah. But
hmm
you have to think about that, and that kind of hung with me for a little bit, and then I then took over writing urban fantasy mystery, and that became way more fun because I was like, 6 books, I don't care.
hmm
Like, some people were like, maybe go to 3. No, I say 6. I'm just doing it. I'm just gonna do it. They're like, okay, I don't know if that's the greatest idea because you don't know if it's successful. I'm like, well, I'm having a fun time, and I'm
yeah.
hitting the expectations of urban fantasy and mystery and the specific beats that make a mystery book. So it's not like I'm just carefree. I don't care whatsoever. No, it would be
hmm
fantastic if they got picked up, but I'm not trying to become a 6-figure author with the book series. Like, I think there's also a little bit of wiggle room for that too. Like, you can um, write a book with the expectations and the beats, depending on the genre. Not all genres have specific beats, but mystery does. You have to have 5 things or else it's not a mystery book, right? But
hmm
I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel.
right.
I love mystery
hmm
books, so I'm just going as it is expected. And then urban
yeah.
fantasy, fun. Like, I get it, it's fun. I just also kind of base my urban fantasies or like the vibe on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And like,
Yeah.
that's my idea of great urban fantasy. There have been some other urban fantasy books where it's like, what happened? What happened? And like the fun, the sarcasm, but also you can have that and be serious. But some of
right.
them, I think that's the balance because you're killing so many bad monsters. Okay, you got to have a little sarcasm, or else it's just
Exactly.
depressing.
Then it becomes too real. I don't like that.
I know, yeah. Well, do you have? Well, you said it's your that book
hmm
is a series. So how many books do you have planned again?
So, for this series, there's 5 core novels planned in the series. That's the
Mhm.
plan right now. I don't know
Yeah.
what will happen in the future. I have that out. I have a novella out for it. It's like a 1.5. That's not one of the core novels.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm now working on at the end of last year and at the beginning of this year, up until the end of February, I was working on book 2, but I need to take a break because I need to go. Excuse me, that was embarrassing. I just worked in front of everybody. Uh, Man, this is good coffee, huh? So
Oh, that's
I had to
coffee.
stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had to work on a prequel novella that I'm working on, which I start working on last year, and it just fell apart. It just didn't
Mm,
work. I don't It
mm.
was one of those things, and it was actually kind of funny. It was super humbling for me because,
Yeah.
I wrote the first book, and then I wrote the 1.5, and I was like, I got this. It's in the bag. And then I started working on this one, and then it fell apart, and I was like, oh, maybe
Mm,
I maybe I don't know everything, and
yeah.
book two started going super well, and now I'm back at this prequel novella, which I'm planning on releasing for free, just as like a little taster. I already have free stories that people can read, but I kind of want to write something a little more that I think is a
Yeah.
better lead in to the series than the free stories that I have available. Um,
Mhm.
so, um, and I'm back into writing it now, and I'm solving the problems that I had, and it's just like a tricky story. Um, and the way I wanted to tell it was kind of a challenge because it was kind of a type of story that needed more setup. But my challenge was like, I bet I can do this without a setup, which is
Mhm.
really not smart. Like I'm breaking rules
Yeah.
and trying to do it in a way that actually works. Um, so, um, it's a challenge, and I basically challenge. I thought I totally had it in the bag. I'm like, I know how to make that work, and I did not know how to make it work. And
Mhm.
which at the same time, I'm very happy that I can recognize now when something isn't working. Like it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't release that. So because I already know it doesn't work, and now I know that I have to keep working on it. So at least I have at least that much experience to understand that something's
Yeah.
broken. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I have those, and I do a lot of editing for other authors, like developmental editing. That's my kind of wheelhouse for other authors. Mostly now, I don't do it for anybody. I just work with my authors in Emergent Realms, which
Mhm.
is a small press that I'm kind of building. By small
Mhm.
press, I mean like a micro press. It's kind of basically a few authors who are self-publishing together and working together, and we're kind of creating a team, which is kind of
Oh,
fun to do. And it allows us to scale in ways that is a little more challenging than it is by yourself. um,
yeah.
and I do enjoy doing when I don't have to when I'm not deep within a draft. I do enjoy the business side of being an author.
Mhm.
Like I actually like that stuff. I'm pretty entrepreneurial as a person.
Yeah.
So on top of loving art, I kind of for some reason that combination usually doesn't bother me. Um,
Yeah.
it's but when I'm trying to create something, that's when I don't want the streams to cross. And that's
Mhm.
that's again, that's one of the trickier parts of being an author is making sure you can compartmentalize those things. So since I do enjoy some of that stuff, it helps me work with other authors who absolutely hate it, which
Yeah.
is better for me because then I can completely compartmentalize it and say, I'm dev editing this. This isn't something I wrote. I can just put it in that box, and then I can say, oh, now I need to package and market this, and it's not my baby. So I can
Mhm.
make more better objective decisions about that than I would on my own story. Um, Unfortunately, because I am one of the people who have to make those decisions, I have to do it for myself too. But I try to compartmentalize
Yeah.
it. I'm getting better at compartmentalizing it, but it's nicer to work on somebody else's uh, story on that side, and then you know not have to worry about the creative part of it as well. So,
Mhm. Yeah, I
or at
think
least not except for the dev editing part, which is part
yeah.
creative, part editing. So,
Yeah, I think, what artists in general have, issues with is would be, like, marketing and then, like, making it into a marketable product because they don't wanna
mhm,
see it as a product.
right.
But, if you do wanna make money off of it, then yes, there's some marketing involved.
Hmm.
Um, but then you could just, do it as a hobby and, like, give stuff away, and then that's not really, like, you're trying to find people that would be interested in hanging up your painting or giving away a hat you sewed. But it's a little easier to give away stuff than to
Mhm.
sell it. But then I think I would say 90, let's go nicely, 95% of authors or any artist at a certain point, they're like, okay, now I want to make money.
Yeah.
Because you are sinking a lot into it, and then people will probably come back and be like, oh, can you make me this stuff for
Mhm.
free? And after a while, like that 95% will be like, why do you want it for free? Hmm?
Mhm.
Am I not good enough? What do you want from me? Um, that was
Yeah.
me in the beginning when I was on Wattpad for like 3 years, and
Mhm.
I was younger back then. And I was like, I just want people to read my stuff because that's all that matters. And
Mhm.
then I was doing everything. It was a part-time job on there, as is,
Mhm.
writing and doing working on stuff. And I was like,
Right.
wait, why am I doing this for free? I mean, why am I giving away full-length novels for free? Why?
Mhm.
I am spending so much time and even some money because I wanted professional looking covers, and so I would pay um,
Right.
like new cover artists where it would be like $100 instead of 350, but like they're right out of school, but that's still $100, right?
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
it adds up, and I'm like, wait, I'm not what happened here? Okay, maybe I'll just pivot in my thinking and say,
Yeah.
hmm, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And then that was born of the self-publishing. And I do make money. It's just that I'm not in profit.
Yeah.
But something is better than nothing in my eyes at this point.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's tricky, it's hard. I would say Wattpad and things like that, where you're doing it for free, is good if, for practice, I think
Yeah,
that's a great way to practice, in public, and you get a lot of feedback, and that's useful. Because there's things that you can tell about your writing by seeing how people are responding to it. Wattpad has a little metrics behind it, so you can kind of see, like, when are people stopping reading this story? Like,
yeah,
that's useful because you might have done something. You might have made a misstep. So it's good to analyze and like, oh, you know what? I didn't open a new mystery box here, you know? Oh, I didn't
mhm,
pay off on something I said back here. There are often reasons for things like that. And it's interesting to look at them and pay attention to those things. And that's a good way to learn. Um, in ways that you it's harder to learn once you start publishing in retail because you can't tell when somebody stops reading. It's
yeah,
they're not gonna email you and say, I stopped at the 16% mark and here's why. Like you don't get that.
yeah,
So beta readers help, but yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I kind of had the beta reading experience for like the almost 4 years I was on there because you upload per chapter and like the readers will comment probably essays, but they will comment. And then they
Hmm.
expect you in return to reply to them, which anyone watching that don't reply to your Goodreads comments. Don't do that.
Hmm.
It's not Wattpad. Which was like a learn. I'm sure it still is a learning curve for those that are still on Wattpad, and then they learn in a bad way that that's not what you do on Goodreads. But they're so used to it. I do
Yeah.
give them leeway. Like if I learned that you were on Wattpad or maybe Inkit or Radish for a long time,
Right.
then I'm like, okay, maybe everyone ease up just a little bit, but like they would be full blown arguments. Not in mine because I didn't argue under my books, but you could go to like a lot of other books, and the author would be arguing with the readers, and I'm like, just say thank you and have a great day. Like,
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
but that's what the mentality I think specifically on Wattpad was all
Hmm.
about. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had that beta reader experience, and then I from that and for so many years, it was like every single day. So almost 4 years of constant beta reading comments,
Mhm.
I cleaned up my writing process in drafts. So then, like, I'll send it to my editor, and I'm like, I'm just really excited, but also nervous. And then
Mhm.
every single time she comes back, like, it's clean. Here's some stuff, but like, I don't know why we
Yeah.
freak out every time. I'm like, well, I'm just. It could happen. Okay, it could happen. Well, I have to rewrite the whole thing. She's like, I don't think so, but I appreciate your care and concern for the art process.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, now luckily I don't have too many problems. I did have problems with writing, like Danu's Curse. I scrapped like 40,000 words. I just deleted them. Like, nope, it's
Mhm.
not going to work anymore. I think that was the biggest one, and that was a long time ago. But I then wrote, I just got rid of the all those words, and then COVID happened. Didn't have a
Yeah.
job, and I was like, okay,
Mhm.
here we go. Sangria, writing sprints. What else am I gonna do? And then I wrote the book in 5 months, and then I was like, okay, this is gonna suck because it was like 5 months,
Mhm.
and there were some changes, but my editor Sarah was like, it's pretty good. Good for you. But what
Yeah.
else was anyone doing?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
you know, it was an interesting time.
It was an interesting time. Um, I I was lucky enough during that time that I was working from home already, so it's kind of like
uh,
business as usual for me.
mhm.
But you know, all of my friends were like freaking out and zooming each other and being like, "What are you? I'm so bored." I'm like, "Well, I feel like my life is the same almost because I had
Yeah.
started working from home like a year before, so
Mhm.
it was kind of like, oh, I guess everybody else is feeling what I'm feeling, except for they're forced into it. So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Interesting times. But at least I got a book
mhm,
out of it, right? Actually, I think
yeah.
maybe 2 books. It's a little blurry. I should know that. I know for sure one. We're okay.
Hold on, I gotta plug in my computer because my battery's deciding to try to abandon me.
I hate when that happens. Technology, got to
Yeah.
get it together.
Right?
But that happens almost every day for me personally. But oh, we are over an hour. That went
Hmm.
fast. I
Yeah,
hope that
it
went
did.
fast. Um, that's why it just like, well, I, I'm still talking to the people, but then like I'm also not. Um, it's like when you uh, just, I think chat in a chill way, things go fast because it's like you're maybe like at a coffee shop, or you're drinking
Yeah,
some wine on the couch with your friends, and 3
exactly.
hours go by. So I think that's why it goes by so fast. Viewers, I hope that it went by fast. I'm going to actually say it did. And don't
Yeah.
at me in the
No
comments.
comments. No comments.
No
It
comments
went
or
by fast.
concerns. Yeah. Thank you so much. uh, well, we'll just wrap it up because we're ending on a high note. And
Yeah.
maybe your computer needs a break. And I'm sure mine does. Well, yeah, mine does too, because like there's updates. But it's great. It's a great timing. Where can we find you, Jim?
Yeah. So all everything that I'm doing is at jimwilbourne.com. That's the easiest way to track me down. Um JIMWILBOURNE.com. It's also on the screen there. So that's pretty
Yes.
easy to see there. So
Mm-hmm.
just add a .com to it and you're good. Um so yeah, you can go to my YouTube videos, my any of my social media, and I put content on there quite regularly, blogs
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot. I do book reviews and, just whatever I'm musing about. In addition to that, you can, grab a free story from me or buy one of my books. So I would say go for the free story if you're unsure. You just want to
Yep.
take a little taste, go for the free story. But if you're ready to dive into a 700-page chunker, I mean, you can just go right there if you want. It's a great book. I'm very proud of it, and I think you might enjoy it if you love epic fantasy, kind of like a mix of classic and modern epic fantasy. Kind of if you like authors like Brandon Sanderson, Robert Jordan, that kind of thing, you will enjoy it. So yeah, give it a try.
Awesome. Thank you for joining. And we will see you in the next video or upcoming videos. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. And do some self-care. It doesn't have to be reading or writing, but we do recommend it if that's your vibe. Bye.
Bye.